Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Rabbi Aviva Bass.
I'm Cantor Jake Harris.
And we're coming from Delray Beach, Florida, from Temple Sinai of Palm Beach County. And it's so great to be here with you this Shabbat. We're going to start this evening by lighting the Shabbat candles. If you have candles that you have not yet lit and want to light with me, please go ahead and do so with me right now. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
All right, thank you so much, Rabbi Aviva. Now we have our candles kindled. It's now time for the Kiddush. So if you're still following along with us in the prayer book, we're going to be on page 122, 123 for the Kiddush. So if you got yourself a cup, I invite you to raise it up. ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים והארץ, וכל צבאם, ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה. וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחיל לנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. לחיים.
L'chaim, Cantor Jake.
Thank you.
So before we continue with our service, I'd like to deliver a few brief announcements. Tonight's Erev Shabbat service is sponsored by Terry Cantor, Dr. Alan Cantor, and Gary and Howard Cantor in memory of their beloved husband and father, Donald Cantor. Our Saturday, April 17th Shabbat Torah study is sponsored by Andy and Seth Dinsky in memory of William Dinsky, Ruth Helzik in memory of Eileen Ellis, Fran and Jerry LaForteza in memory of Fran's beloved mother, Rose Wilk. Elaine and Norm Pollock in memory of Hannah Sperling, Cookie Sagerman in memory of David Sagerman, and Lori and Steve Tamber in honor of the 40th birthday of their daughter, Dr. Karen Tamber Rosenau. Happy birthday! The following donations to the community food pantries are sponsored by Marcia London in memory of her beloved husband, Mark London, and Lori Rhine in memory of her beloved mother, Beverly Weinman. And so their memories, may they all be for a blessing, and you do honor to their legacies by these donations, and we appreciate them. Thank you very much. Tonight we celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut that occurred this week. Yom HaAtzmaut is an Israeli Independence Day, and this is Israel's 73rd birthday. So happy birthday to Israel. And we're going to do some singing tonight in honor of Israel and a couple of readings. So I'd like to open our service with the following that was written by Abraham Joshua Heschel. Israel is a personal challenge, a personal religious issue. It is a call to every one of us as an individual, a call which one cannot answer vicariously. The ultimate meaning of the state of Israel must be seen in terms of the vision of the prophets, the redemption of all. The religious duty of the Jew is to participate in the process of continuous redemption, in seeing that justice prevails over power, that awareness of God penetrates human understanding. And now, with that in mind, we begin our service, and I'd like to invite Cantor Jake to start with a song, Sadiq Katamar, which we can find on page 140 of our Siddur.
We turn now to page 146 for the formal call to worship, the Baruch Hu. Is your custom to do so? Please rise. המבורך. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. די 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 די. If you were standing, you may be seated. And if you've just been sitting in the same spot the whole time, then I hope that you've found some more comfort so far in the service. And I hope that something that I sing or something Rabbi Aviva says will bring even more comfort or enlightenment. Page 148, we're together for Ma'ariv Aravim. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim ma'ariv aravim. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. בחוכמה פותח שערים ובתבונה משנה עיתים ומחליף את הזמנים ומסדר את כוכבים במשרותיכם ברקיע כרצונו. יאי די 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 די. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Borei yom v'layla kollel or mipnei choshech vechoshech mipnei or u'ma'avir yom u'mevii layla מבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ערבים. Yai dai 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 Ha'ma'ariv Aravim.
The Shema is bracketed on both sides by statements of love. The first of these statements, Ahavat Olam, describes God's love for us as the Jewish people in the giving of the Torah. And after the Shema, we have, of course, Ve'ahavta, and you shall love, that we are to love God in return. On page 150, please join me in reading the English for Ahavat Olam. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. On page 152, we join for the Shema. If it is your custom to rise, we do so now. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please join me on page 155 for the interpretive translation of Ve'ahavta. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. On the top of page 163, we have a reading. And as I mentioned, tonight we're celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut, Israeli Independence Day. And this reading, I think, leads directly into the song that we're going to sing next in honor of Israel's birthday. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We are the people in whom the past endures, and Am Yisrael Chai, the people Israel, is a living people.
Sing together. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Sing it with me now. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai.
Thank you, Cantor Jake. In 1902, Theodore Herzl came out with his utopian novel about the future Jewish state, and in it, he ended with these words, Im tirtzu, ein zo agada. If you will it, it is no dream. So Hatikva, the hope, is the national anthem of Israel. And it is so because for so many years, thousands of years, we yearned for our homeland to be actually a country. We yearned to be back in our homeland, and then we saw it become a country in 1948. So as we begin to enter the Tefillah, we'll have a few brachot, the first few brachot that we always do in the Hebrew with Cantor Jake, and then we'll go into a time of silence. I invite you, if you wish to do so, to think about a time that you have had a hope, just a hope, and what it would take to will that into reality. How can you turn a hope into reality? So let's think about our hopes, and let's make them not just dreams, but our realities. As we begin together on page 164 with the Tefillah, and those who are able to do so, please rise.
Adonai tiftach ufi yagid tehillatcha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'anora, El Elyon, Komel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chastei Avot va'imahot, U'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, Leman shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah rav lehoshia. Morid hatal, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. אוויר הרים צלול כיין, וריח אורנים, נישא ברוח הארבעים עם כה פעמונים. ובתרדמת אילן ואבן, שבויה בחלומה, העיר אשר בדד יושבת ובלי בחומה. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת נשל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. איך יבשו בורות המים, כיכר השוק ריקה, ואין פוקדת הר הבית, בית העתיקה. ובמורות אשר באלה מעלות רוחות, ואין יורדת ים המלח בדרך יריקו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. So the opportunity now to hear some Torah, and we can see on the screen the actual scroll. So if you would like to be included in this aliyah, please go ahead and rise or incline yourself more directly to the Almighty God at this time. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed, Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Amen. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Daber el bnei Yisrael lemor. Isha ki tazria v'yalda zachar v'tam'a shiv'at yamim ki me nidat dota titma uvayom hashmini yimol basar alato ushloshim yom ushloshet yamim tashev bidmei Torah bechol kodesh lo tiga ואל המקדש לא תבוא עד מלאת ימי תחורך. Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelite people thus, When a woman at childbirth bears a male, she shall be unclean 7 days. She shall be unclean as at the time of her menstrual infirmity. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. She shall remain in a state of blood purification for 33 days. She shall not touch any consecrated thing, nor enter the sanctuary, until her period of purification is completed. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen.
This is most rabbis' not favorite portion, and it is certainly not mine as well. But that's actually not what I'm talking about tonight. If you want to learn more about this doubled portion, Tazria Metzora, which has all to do with Tameh and Tahor and those categories of ritual impurity and purity, come tomorrow to Torah study and learn more. But at this time, we're going to pray for those who are in need of healing of body, mind, spirit, or of all three. So if you are thinking of someone or more than one person who are in need of healing, please say their names aloud now. And so for those whose names we have just said, as well as those names that we now put on our screen, we sing this Mishaberach, this prayer for healing. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, veLeah, hu yivarech, veYirapeh et hacholim. Mishaberach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, veLeah, hu yivarech veYirapeh et hacholim. יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים. This past year, on November 7th, 2020, the world lost a great rabbi and scholar, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. Zichrono livracha. He's called Lord because he was a member of the House of Lords in England. Rabbi Sacks was a prolific writer and speaker, and there are also many videos of his speaking available to watch online. Last year, in April of 2020, Rabbi Sacks recorded a Yom HaAtzmaut message, which is now available on YouTube. Maybe some of you have seen it. As it is one of the speaking engagements of his final year of life, it is especially inspiring to watch. I also find this drash inspiring for us dealing with the coronavirus, as in this teaching, Rabbi Sacks made a solid connection between the state of Israel and the condition of our world now, still dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. Little did Rabbi Sacks know when he recorded this teaching that we would still be dealing with this pandemic now, 1 year later. I'd like to offer you Rabbi Sacks's teaching about Yom HaAtzmaut and its connection with the coronavirus and what we can learn from it. In his drash, Rabbi Sacks explains the distinction between what the rabbis of the ancient Mishnah called Reshut HaYachid and Reshut HaRabim. Reshut HaYachid is the private domain, and Reshut HaRabim is the public domain. Rabbi Sacks assumed knowledge of this to some extent, so he didn't explain this in detail, so I'd like to clarify this now. The distinction between these two realms of our existence is perhaps most widely known when it comes to the Erev. For those of you who may not know, an Erev is a boundary line, usually made out of string, that distinguishes an Orthodox Jewish community from the outside secular world. Inside this boundary line, inside the boundaries of the Erev, Orthodox Jews are permitted to carry things on Shabbat and festivals. Ordinarily, carrying is one of the 39 prohibited activities on Shabbat by halakha, Jewish law. But the Mishnah, in its discussion of the Reshut HaYachid, the private domain, and Reshut HaRabim, the public domain, says that carrying on Shabbat and festivals is permitted within Reshut HaYachid, the private sphere, but not in Reshut HaRabim, the public sphere. In other words, if you're in your own house or in your courtyard, you can carry something from one place to another because you're within your own domain. So the rabbis created a loophole to enable people to carry their keys and objects related to their infants and children as they walk to and from synagogue or a neighbor's home for a Shabbat or festival meal. This loophole is the Erev, the string that encloses a certain area so as to make the entire area within that boundary considered Reshut HaYachid, the private space, for the purposes of being permitted by halakha, Jewish law, to carry on Shabbat and festivals. As I mentioned, Rabbi Sacks does not discuss the Erev or carrying on Shabbat during his teaching, but I just wanted to clarify this teaching for you, what he means by these terms, Reshut HaYachid and Reshut HaRabim, the private and public spheres of life. Rabbi Sachs discussed the fact that for almost 2 millennia, Jews practiced Judaism almost exclusively in Reshut HaYachid, the private realm, in synagogue, in their homes, and in their Jewish neighbor's home. We didn't practice our Judaism out in the world, in public, for fear of attacks and worse. The fear of anti-Semitism caused us to keep our faith observances private. In some cities, until the modern era, Jews were only permitted to reside in ghettos set up by the predominant Jewish culture. Jews practiced Judaism only in private. For the last year, most of the world has been, at least partially, confined to Reshut HaYachid, to the private sphere. Even when in Reshut HaRabim, the public sphere, we must cover our faces with our masks and retain social distancing. This time period has emphasized our existential aloneness. Each of us, individually, a solitary being, closed off from others. Which brings us to the importance of Yom HaAtzmaut and the state of Israel for us as Jews. Now that there is a Jewish state, where all Jews can feel comfortable to practice their Judaism openly, publicly, where Hebrew and Jewish symbols are everywhere, we are now able to celebrate our identity in Reshut HaRabim, the public sphere. We no longer have to hide our faith in our homes and synagogues. There is a homeland that is not only Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, but also Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel, which we now celebrate on its 73rd birthday. As Rabbi Sachs said in his video, Judaism in Israel belongs to the public domain, not just the private domain. It is as if Israel cured us all of a kind of Jewish coronavirus that was forcing us to keep ourselves indoors. Rabbi Sachs suggests that the coronavirus should remind us of what Judaism used to be before the state of Israel was born, and of how grateful we should be to have the Jewish state and to be able to participate fully as Jews in the world. It is our blessing and responsibility to bring justice, law, and compassion from our Jewish heritage into the world. Israel calls us to be the very best that we can become, and we must never take the state of Israel for granted. Yom HaAtzmaut Sameach, happy 73rd birthday, Israel, and Shabbat Shalom. And now, before we go to the Aleinu, we actually have another ritual that is done at this time of the year as we count between Pesach, the festival of our freedom, to Shavuot, the festival of the receiving of our Torah. And that happens on day 50, which we don't count, but we count all the way through day 49. So I'm going to give you a hint now as to where we are, because we're not meant to actually count the day until we say the bracha, the blessing. So I'm going to give you a hint that last night until sundown tonight was day 19. So you can add one, and you know what we're going to say in just a minute. So let's rise, please, those who are able to do so, and we'll count the Omer, and then we will continue with the Aleinu prayer. And so we say the bracha for the counting of the Omer, which is Al Sefirat HaOmer. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, Al Sefirat HaOmer. Hayom esrim yom shehem shnei shavuot v'shisha yamim laOmer. Today is the 20th day, which is making 2 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. So today is day 20. May it be for good. And now we remain standing as we turn to page 586 in our Siddur for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר ראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Those we recall at this time, whose yahrzeits occur at this time on the calendar, and whose names are engraved on the plaque surrounding our sanctuary: Dorothy Appel, George L. Bobis, Rose Lustig Cohen, Eileen Ellis, Augusta Frances Feller, Ida Safran Friedman, the Himmelstein family, Alfred Hirsch, Elsa Hirsch, Ferdinand Hirsch, Margot Hirsch, Lee Hustick, Josephine Jonatus, Layla Joseph, Hyman Stort Kaplan, Rebecca Corland, Shirley Kornfeld, Mark London, Alan Lubart, Mary Menken, Sidney Nashner, Linda Rose, Irene Rosen, Rabbi Samuel Silver, Bracha Summers, Jack Sperling, Mindy Sue Turano, and Ida Zwiegenhaft. Others we recall at this time: Tilly Bass, Louis A. Brown, William Dinsky, Laszlo Gabor, Ronald Goldman, Dorothy Green, Theodore Harrison, Anne Herman, Meta Kalberman, Edward Lippman, Pearl Meschenberg, Carl Sherman, Herbert Sherman, Hannah Sperling, Sophie Weinberg, Rose Wilk, and Sandra Wolfer. And a man whose death is more recent, whom we mourn, Rabbi Solomon Schiff. And I must also mention all of those who have lost their lives in recent times due to terror and violence, both gun violence and other types of violence. And we feel that loss, and we feel the sadness and grief for their families. If you are thinking of someone at this time whom I have not named, please say their names aloud now. So now for all of those whom we have named, as well as all of those who were murdered in the Shoah, we rise in solidarity with mourners everywhere as we turn to page 598 for the Mourners Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divarach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chaye docho Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ulal me'almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal, Shemei Kudusha b'richu, Le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiram ba'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Useh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, Amen. May the source of peace, who creates harmony on high, bring peace to us, to Israel, and to all who mourn among us, and in all communities of the world. And let us all say, Amen. I ask you, if you would, to remain standing for just a moment longer as we sing together the national anthem of Israel, Hatikva, the Hope.
שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון מירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון מירושלים.
Shabbat Shalom and Yom HaAtzmaut Sameach.
Shabbat Shalom.